It's Rajan with Fluent Mortgage, and today I have the pleasure of having Jeremy Stewart in the studio with me. Just such a great guy. I got to tell you, you're going to love this edition because, I mean, we talk everything, and we try to time limit for 45 minutes. We'll see how it goes. But Jeremy, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having
me.
And
I'm so excited about our conversation that we're going to have.
Likewise. Thanks for having me today. I'm super excited to be here.
All right. Well, let's get into it.
I think what we talked about, the buy now or buy later thing, is like huge right now for both of us. Because you have people holding back.
Yeah.
I have people holding back.
Yep. And it's the same thing. People keep thinking, which is a great point. It's about affordability, right? Mm-hmm. People think affordability is tied into rates. It's not just the rate. You can have a 2% and pay $1 million. It's very different than paying 5% at 700,000, right?
Right.
You know what I mean?
That math doesn't exactly work, and that's, I think that's a good intro into the conversation I'm having with clients right now. And it's really twofold with my clients. It's not just what your overall expense is. It's going to be how many people you're competing with.
Yes.
Because I think we both have a stable of people that are waiting for those rates to dump a point and a half. When that happens, that inventory is going to tank again, which means we all know supply and demand. I mean, it's simple seventh grade economics. Supply is going to go down and the demand is going to go up, and the prices have to go up.
Yeah.
And you're going to be fighting like we were in 2021.
That's right.
With 8 or 10 offers, and how are you going to stand out? And from your side, that payment's going to be more.
Yes. And then the other part about it is like, you're just going to be waiving contingencies, I mean, do you really want to be, let's say, a first-time home buyer getting into a market where you're just waiving appraisal contingencies, inspection contingencies, mortgage commitment, contingencies? I mean, you're literally waiving every contingency to try to even get your foot in the door to have your offer, thought about, and then, you're getting knocked down and you're getting frustrated.
And, the way inflation's gone, do these first-time home buyers even have the reserve to meet an appraisal gap? So now we've got a whole new scenario that we didn't have 3 years ago.
Yep.
So things are more expensive. We're all spending more, whether it's at the gas station, the grocery store, or eating out. We see it. We feel it. It's real. So that's my concern, and it's the talk I have with my buyers. Is now a good time to buy? Man, honestly, right now is probably the best time we've had in the last 4 years to buy a house.
I agree. I agree. I mean, totally. I say the same thing all the time. Because people are like, well, no, I mean, but rates are high. I should definitely wait, maybe put more money down. And, what do you tell them?
I tell them, if you can afford the house now, buy it, knowing that if the rates go down, you can always refinance. Now I apply the caveat that don't just 100% assume they're going to go down, because we don't know that.
Right.
So as long as you're comfortable and you love that house now and you can afford it right now, pull the trigger, because you're going to have a lot of negotiating power when it comes to inspection. If the appraisal comes in a little light, if anything goes a little sideways, you're going to work more with that seller and that listing agent than we will in a different market. And there's a lot of power in that. Sellers are much more agreeable right now to help out because they want to move on too.
Yes.
And the buyers have some say. I think it's about as balanced of a market as I've seen.
Yeah, I think sellers, like you were just saying, sellers are more willing to even do things that come back on the inspection, right? Whereas
100%.
if it was a year, 2 years ago or 3 years ago, they're like, no, that one's not asking for that. I'm not doing this. I'm not going to get that done. Like, because why did you? Someone was going to buy the house regardless.
Right. And that's, it's a massive amount of power. So we're not just getting 4-point items fixed. Now we're getting like just little things. And sometimes we're getting credits back at close. I mean, I have a deal that we're getting 2% of purchase price back at close on Monday.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Seller just
do not
offered
hear
it.
about that.
Seller just offered it. If we get a contract by X date, we will provide 2% back. And then truthfully, the house appraised for more than we bought it for. So we got a whole bunch of stuff.
That's a great deal.
It was,
and you're not going to get that another time.
No. If that had been 21,
yeah,
it would have been 30 grand over list price.
Yep.
you have 30 seconds to view the home and put an offer. It would have been escalated. I mean, it would have been insane. So I think, the talk we all have is buy now if you can.
And I think the other thing that a lot of people really have to understand is you're not married to that rate for 30 years. You know what I mean? You're not married to the property for 30 years. I mean, a lot of people have a need, like they've got kids, they need to expand, and they're just, waiting because they think ultimately a lower rate is just going to be like the godsend that opens up affordability for them to get into something. And it's just not the truth. It's not the truth. It's just a myth. And so, like you just said, if you can afford it, you get in now, you refinance at some point, that monthly payment's going to go down. You're going to reap the benefit of it. But your peace of mind, like you're in there. You can always go to a 15-year, go to a 20-year, refinance, whatever you need to do. You can always do something, but you own the property now.
Right.
Versus then having to compete. And you and I both know, how many times have you had clients that are just so frustrated because they're now jumping into the market and like they're doing everything they can to get a house, but they just can't get their offer accepted. And it's not that they're not qualified.
Yeah. Right? Nope. That was the buyers I was just telling you about. They rented for another 18 months prior to this.
Wow.
They were in a different area at the time, but they were just getting hammered. They got beat out. They had bad inspection report. Couldn't get anything. They felt like they had been in a Tyson fight and got hammered.
Yeah.
And then they came to this, and we navigated a whole bunch of things we saw wrong with the house, and the seller's like, yeah, okay, I don't disagree with you. We're going to have to fix all this prior to close.
That's amazing.
And they did.
Yeah.
They did. We went back to re-inspect, and I didn't even think it was the same house. I'm going to be honest with you. It was like
all the work that they did.
Yeah, the HGTV, where they pull it back, and I was like, no way.
Wow.
I was absolutely shocked. It was the same house. Because people tend to, I think my experience has always been it's like sort of done, but there's like 4 or 5 things they left out.
Yep.
I think they probably did more than what they had agreed to even.
And that's awesome. I mean, the thing that I try to tell people as much as possible is you've got to look at the past, and that's what we talked about, looking back at COVID times and seeing what happened with prices. And at the end of the day, they're only able to build as much as, a limited amount. Yep. It's not like there's this huge, big boom. And as much as they're trying to build, they can't build it fast enough. So they're always, and we're stuck, I think, in a little bit of this rut of that supply and demand type of situation, right? So there's still a ton of demand. And at the end of the day, there's very limited supply. So someone that thinks that, oh, you know what, I'm just going to wait, I'm going to hold off, prices are going to come down, something's going to happen, and then I could jump in. They're always just behind the 8 ball. And they can't catch up, and they find themselves in this kind of hamster wheel effect of, well, you know what, they didn't buy last year, they didn't buy this year, they're probably not going to buy next year. And then 4 years, 5 years later, they're still kind of singing the same thing, which is, oh, home prices are too high. I can't buy. Rates are this, but
I'm waiting for the market to crash.
Right.
That's probably the big one I heard in the last 18 months. Ugh, it's crashing.
Yeah.
2008
exactly.
all over again. I'm like,
Yep.
I mean, I wasn't in real estate in 2008, but I saw it. This looks a whole lot different than that.
So I could tell you, as someone that was around back then, right? I was in the mortgage industry back then. And I've said this countless amount of times. Now, the only time that I thought realistically that we might have seen something like that was on the onset of COVID.
Okay.
Because we all thought that, things are going to happen, people can't pay, no one's working, all this other stuff is going to happen, and so we're going to definitely see a bit of a crash. And it went completely the opposite.
Yeah, it did.
And I even did a video. I think it changed even the landscape of real estate and the way things are going to be done. Because if something like that happened and it didn't crash the market, I can't see what would set the market up to make a crash like that again. And even if it happened, prices continue to appreciate so much that even if you have a 10% or even a 15% reduction in that price or correction,
you're still ahead of the game.
You're still ahead of the game. And now you're starting back at a higher price anyway, going back up.
Which leads me to another point that we discussed was these people that are getting in now. If those rates drop,
yep,
what's going to happen to the prices?
it's going to skyrocket.
But, 10, 15, 20% maybe.
Yeah.
So you will have bought here.
Yes.
They're going to be here
Yes.
on the refi side.
Right.
Their equities they bought so much security by buying now.
And I think that's what a lot of homeowners don't realize, right? Because as you and I both were just saying again, you wait to buy when rates come down. Okay, so the house that you could get right now at $500,000 at a 6.5% interest rate. Okay, yes, it's a 6.5 rate, but you're buying it for $500. You don't really have much competition. You wait a year or whatever for rates to come down. Let's say they come down to 4.5, right? Because I can almost be certain, and I would bet my money on that, we're not seeing 2%, 2.5% interest rates
I'd be
again.
shocked.
I just don't. I think it was a one-time thing. I don't see it happening. Do I see realistically rates between 4 and 5%? Yes. So let's even say it comes down to 4.5%. But now, with everyone rushing back to the market, again, escalation clauses, contingencies, trying to compete. Now you're competing with 10, 15 people, and that same $500,000 house is going for $600,000.
Yeah.
Right. Even at a 4.5% interest rate, you're still paying. If it goes even above that 600, you're still paying more. And over that long term.
So you're a math guy.
Yeah.
You've been in this. So say 500 at 6.5%, the difference in payment at 600 at 4.5%.
Yeah. So you're still paying at least 100 and change more a month, right?
That's a lot of money.
But then when you think about that over the lifetime of that loan, it just goes to show you that you're paying a whole lot more. You see, and that's why I said it's just a mindset thing, right? Because people that don't really know the ins and outs, they're just thinking a lower rate automatically means a lower payment and more affordability.
So this is the other thing. We're talking about just principal and interest on this. We didn't talk about taxes.
Right.
So if you're paying $500,000 tax base and a $600,000 tax base.
That's a great point. Great point. Because I think
so now we're $250, $300 more a month.
That's right. And that's just going to keep going up. So you hit it right on the nail where people don't think about those intangibles, right? They're just thinking about, again, the mortgage payment. But yeah, now you're buying at $600,000. That value of that property now demands a higher tax amount. So those taxes have gone up too. And so all of that adds to that monthly payment being higher.
And every year, that's like you said, it's going to keep going up. So I would much rather play catch up 5 to 6 than 6 to 7.
Correct.
Myself.
Correct.
So no, it's a really hot topic right now. And I don't like coming off salesy when I do it, but giving them real data of like how that landscape looks, it definitely helps people that are on the fence make that decision, especially if they got beat up earlier.
Yes. Yeah. And it's funny because I do find that when you have a little bit more of that in-depth conversation and you kind of break it down and show it to them that way, people start to realize, you know what, there's a lot of truth in what you're saying. And that's why I've really talked a lot about getting information from the right source. Right. Because TikTok is not the right source.
No.
In many aspects, right? Like, yeah, you could find some things out, but you really need to speak to someone that knows it. And I admire your thirst for knowledge and wanting to get more information so that you can provide that to your clients. And that's really important. It's not just, hey, I'm going to take you out, look at a house, and whether you want it, you don't, great, not, move on to the next. It's, no, let me actually take time to give you the insights, to give you the background story, to show you where things are going. Right. That really is what I feel separates you from many of your other peers.
Thank you. Well, that's nice to hear. Yeah, I think I heard it best from, a real estate agent / book writer. He goes, are you just a door opener? Yeah. So I don't ever want to be known as the guy that has the key to get in the lockbox. Yeah. Real estate's a whole lot more than it's really, the house is negligibly important at that point. It's the thing that gets you in the door, but learning the people and what their hot buttons are, and even your business, the mortgage is the product, but it's the relationship with the person.
Absolutely.
That withstands time and being the knowledge source. And that's what I appreciate about talking to you. When I asked questions, it wasn't just this canned, well, I don't have a crystal ball, which is what, like we are all kind of taught to say, but you were like, okay, well, I'm looking at this, and this. And it was across a spectrum of opinions. and this is where my points meet, and
Right.
this is why I'm giving you the answer I give you. So that's the stuff I take away,
Mm-hmm.
and that's why I'm sitting here, because I respect that so much.
Yeah.
Because it makes me look smarter when I go out and talk to my client today, tomorrow, the next day,
Right.
because that's not my job. It's not my job, so I need to rely on somebody that is like,
That knows what they're doing and that can give you that insight.
exactly,
Right.
exactly.
And I think that's, again, the important things that separate good agents from great agents. It's being able to understand market patterns, being able to have the right circle of people around you that can guide you with that, can even have harsh conversations.
Yep.
Like I tell people all the time, whether it's a client, a referral partner, anyone, and maybe that's just the New York in me, right? Which we've got to time this, right? We got like
we're
a
on the
45-minute clock.
Yeah.
But I rather tell you the way that it is, and you might not like it, but I'm proud of the fact that I'm not going to just be the yes man or tell you what you want to hear.
No,
I'd rather tell you exactly the way that it is. Yeah, I'll tell you the way it is and maybe give you some advice or some pointers or things like that. But I'd rather be that guy.
You would rather be, and I feel the same way. I want to be, when someone thinks about real estate, they go, you know what, I'm going to call Jeremy and get his opinion before I make a decision. And I'm sure you feel the same way about the lending business. Even if they don't pull the trigger today, the fact they called you means they respect your opinion enough.
That's right.
That you were the call they made to go, hey, what do you think? Is it time to do this?
Yes.
And that is so much leverage. It's more than anything else I could do, is that people will call and go, what's your opinion?
Right. And from what I've seen, right, and I've been doing this 21 years, I still have clients that call me that I did their mortgages 20 years ago and 18 years ago, 17 years ago. And it's funny because sometimes it's not even mortgage related. It might just even be finance related. And they call me up and they say, I want your opinion on something. I'm about to do this. Maybe I'm setting up a 401k. I want your opinion. I mean, but like you just said, it's the trust that's built, because they know that at the end of the day, you don't just care about your business. It's not it's not about selling a house. It's not about doing a mortgage. It's you actually have care about them. Right. And that relationship.
Yeah.
And I think, and what I've learned personally, that's what will carry you through ups and downs of markets, right? Like, it's all great, when business is booming, everyone was doing business, but think about how many people are hurting over the last year and a half right now, right?
What was the stat last year from realtors? 49% did one transaction or less.
Right.
That's
staggering. When you think about just a year and a half before that, it was like,
it was a difference.
It was rain in real estate, right?
Oh,
and agents were just,
crazy.
out there, right?
It was crazy. And it's funny. I started really in 2020.
Wow.
I left my job half-time. I was still working half-time. And just to make sure this was going to work. And my first quarter, I did better than I anticipated, but still, like just getting my feet wet. And then COVID happened and like everything shut down. I went, oh no,
what am I gonna do?
I made the worst career move of my entire life.
Right.
But I kept plugging away at things and figured out people. I was in a people job before, so it's always been people.
Yeah.
And then, towards July of that year, it was like, all of a sudden the spigot opened and it was like, holy smokes.
I got to tell you something. If you didn't tell me that, I honestly I did not know that that's when you started in real estate.
Yeah.
Because and I'm not saying this because you're here, and I speak to agents all the time, right? The way you carry yourself, the way you conduct your business, and just the business that you do in general, I honestly would have thought that you're someone that's been in this industry for at least 10 years, maybe even 15 years. I mean, like, your insights, your knowledge, just the way you conduct yourself, the way you work, and your success is amazing.
Well, thank you. I think it's background. I had a healthcare job before. It was a lot of education, so I brought that over.
I was gonna ask you about that.
So that, I think, I learned how to listen to people early, listen to their problems, give them, and fix them based on what they were telling me. real estate's not all that much different.
Yeah.
Listen to what they want.
That's it. People don't listen.
Answer their questions. Answer them intelligently.
Mm-hmm.
And by that, I mean, sometimes the answer is, I don't know, but I'll find out.
Yeah.
And people respect that. And then give them what they want, produce, right?
Yep.
So my job was physical therapy. They came in, told me what was wrong, answered their questions,
Mm-hmm.
put them on a program to get them better,
Yep.
and followed through. Like, does that sound
Same
very different?
And it's funny because, so my first passion was medicine.
Okay.
And my first job was working as a clerk in an emergency room.
Okay.
But all of the doctors just loved me because every patient that walked in that door, I was there with them, helping a triage, and it was the same exact thing. And mortgages is the same way, right? So you're listening to what the problem is, you're figuring out what tests need to be done or how to fix it, right?
Right.
And so then you do what's necessary to get the end result, right?
Right.
So it's whether it's real estate or and the care is there.
Yeah. Oh, of course. Yeah. Yeah. That's the most important thing. This is people focused job. 100%.
People don't know that. A lot of people don't think about it that way.
Not know that though.
But that's where I think that difference really comes in, where you have successful agents. And don't get me wrong, right? Like, yes, we're doing this because it pays the bills and we do
but
it well.
everybody,
Right?
everybody knows that.
Right.
All your clients know you need
Right.
that you're going to
And they understand that, which is absolutely fair.
Nobody has ever had a problem with me getting paid for doing my job.
Right, right. The thing I think that too many people, especially newer agents, they make a decision not based on wanting to work with people and not wanting to help people.
Mm-hmm.
It's a decision based on just finances.
Yep.
It's, oh, well, if an agent's they're selling a property for this and they're making this much percentage. Well, wow, if I can do 3 of those, 5 of those a year, I mean, I'm great. That's why I'm getting into real estate.
Yeah, that's a whole wrong reason.
But it's like you know what it is? I call it the U-turn. It's like you go in and you go right back out, right? And that's why you have so much fall through, because if your perspective is just focused on the finance, you're not going to ever spend the time actually listening to people and wanting to help them.
Well, and the other agents see right through it too. So, I have 6,000 colleagues in this county. Mm-hmm. You saw me interact with one 15 minutes ago. We get along, right? Yeah. I mean, you saw that. That's
absolutely
that's genuine respect for each other.
And I would not believe that you guys worked at different places. Mm-hmm. Because honestly, it looked like you guys were friends. I mean, if I walked in on that conversation and I'm looking at it, I'm like, I thought you guys kind of like knew each other for a long time. And
we were neighbors at one point, but no, we have a mutual respect for each other's business. And he runs a good, clean business. Mm-hmm. And I think I like to believe I run a good, clean business, and we coexist very well together for that reason. Mm-hmm. And that's the second part of why I am the way I am is my wife said, if you're going to get into this, don't change who you are. Who you are has always been talking about your patients, about how they are as people, not their problems.
Yep.
So it's never been about the house. It's been about the people selling or buying the house. And that's always been the most important. The thing is, I get amped. I mean, I love seeing cool houses like everybody.
Of course.
You never turn down and not get excited if you get to go in like a $2 million house. I mean, it'd just be crazy.
Right.
But it's the people involved with those things, and maybe there are stories of how they got to that point.
Yeah.
Are the things like I remember.
Yep.
Or their whys. Why are they selling? Why are they buying? Mm-hmm. The first deal, first-time home buyers watching that
excitement, right?
Oh, it's so cool.
Yeah,
and you only get that once.
And
too.
I can imagine, like, sometimes, like when you have like the kids and like you see them running into their rooms or into like where the pool area is or something, and it's just like it just puts this warm smile on your face. Like,
you did that.
That's amazing. Like,
you help them figure out the money side to get them that. I found the thing that made them feel that way. Like that, I don't know. You can't, that's tough to replicate.
I agree. And that's why for me, and I've said this when we were talking, I'm like, that's why I get up every single day. Mm-hmm. And for me, I don't call it a job. I don't call it work. I call it just doing what I love.
Yeah.
And I know people are looking at this and they're like, oh, he's full of, you know what?
He's just selling me on it. That's exactly what's happening.
But I'm telling you, regardless of some days, yes, there are days that are stressful more than others. But I wake up and I cannot see myself doing anything else. Because the minute that I have a conversation with a new client or even existing client or a meeting or whatever it is, you know, and you see their enthusiasm, their excitement, especially first-time home buyers, and it brings it right all back in.
Oh, yeah. No,
you know, whether
100%.
it was my first deal or my 1,000th deal, it's still that same feeling.
Yeah, well, because you care about the people, not the deal.
Right.
And I always said that. I always feel like when I'm focused on the people, everything's so much easier. If I ever have gotten in a position where I felt like it started to be about the money or something else. And I mean, I think we all like, oh, we don't want the deal to fall apart because we just don't.
Right.
You almost have to reset yourself at that point and go, okay, but it's about these people and we want what's best for them. So if this isn't what's best for that person, let's back up and restart. And, you know, almost everything washes out of you at that point and you're really fresh to go.
But can I tell you something? Being able to have that mindset to just say, hey, it's about them, and it's okay if this deal falls apart. We're just going to take it back and find something new for them. That in of itself is something that you don't find very often because a lot of people, a lot of agents would be like, well, no, I can't have this fall apart. It's got to close. It's, you know,
but it doesn't.
They'll push and try to find ways of how to get it to close, and they'll push clients and they'll try to, you know, in a sense, you know, speak to them in a way that you know washes their mind into moving forward with something, even though it might not be the best.
No, and I'm sure you get that pressure at times.
Yep.
From people in general, and it could even be the client, like, and you're like, hey buddy, maybe this is more than you need to bite off right now.
Absolutely. And I learned that. I've had conversations with people like that, and believe it or not, what I learned from experiences, that client right then and there might not be happy about it and they might not like it, but down the line they come back and they're like, you know what, I appreciate it. It was the right advice. It was what I needed to hear.
And if they don't, then they weren't the people for you.
Right.
You know, and that's another piece of it. You know, we all want to be everybody's flavor, but we can't.
That's right.
I think hard truths are sometimes difficult. Good advice always wins out.
Yep.
And at the end of the day, I think we talked about this too, is maybe getting them with the person that they are a better fit for is absolutely the best thing you could do in that situation.
Yes.
You know, if I'm not the right person, hey, and we talked about this geographically for me. Yeah. You know, there's areas, I mean, I'd love to tell you I'm an expert at everything.
Yeah.
But I'm not.
I did not know that.
Nah.
I wouldn't think that. I think this guy knows everywhere. But, yeah.
But I'm smart enough to say, hey, let me find you an agent that does know that. And you know, those people have never not come back when they're ready to talk real estate again.
Yes.
Because I did that.
Right. And I do the same thing too. Two things. One, just going back to what you're saying, I've actually had conversations with clients where I've said to them, look, and they've been persistent in what they want in terms of a certain budget. And I know that they're really going to be pushing it. And I can tell just by their financial situation that it's, you know, them pushing it past that limit is going to be detrimental to them, right? For me, a lot of what it triggers back is what I saw back in 2008 and a lot of the things that caused that collapse. Like, you know, again, I was a lender at that time, and I saw where there were times I would tell someone that was making $30,000, you can't buy a $600,000 home, not because you could get a no-doc loan, you know, with a 540 FICO score and do 106% financing. Right, yes. Are the programs there for you to qualify? But does that mean you should? No, you're making $30,000. And they would say, well, if you're not going to help me, I'll go, you know, deal with the guy down the street. And I'm like, well, I think that would be the best thing for you. Because for me, and it's always been this one word that always stands out in my mind, it's integrity.
Yeah.
Right?
No, it's a big word.
It's what has allowed me to sleep for 21 years, go to bed, not worrying, because it's not about, I don't care about losing a deal. I care about my integrity.
Right.
And
Right.
that's always been, like my guiding light, my North Star. And that's what I feel like has kept me in the industry as long as I have.
Well, yeah. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in the industry right now.
I would have been out in 2008.
Yeah. I mean, I watched The Big Short.
There you go.
I watched the movie, and I mean, I don't feel like that was so Hollywooded up in a lot of cases. I feel like that was pretty darn accurate.
It was. And I could tell you, just being in the industry at that time, and I mean, in New York, and in one of like the epicenters of what they called like even mortgage fraud.
Mhm.
And I saw the things that were going on, and I'm just like,
Couldn't
how?
do it.
Like, I mean, I couldn't do it. I could tell
Yeah.
you stories of things that,
Yeah,
you know,
I'm sure.
came across my desk, and I was just like, and I was young. I was in my early 20s. And, you know, there are things where I could have thought about, well, I mean, you know, $4, $5 million, $6 million of deals are coming across my desk, and I could do what everyone else is doing. But I was like, I can't.
But
It's
now
just not me.
But now it's 2024,
Right.
and you're still here. Probably those $4 or $5 million that came across. How many more have expanded? Like, you can't
Absolutely. I mean,
because you didn't.
That's
because
right.
you didn't, and then you became trusted.
Exactly. And that's what I learned even recently with COVID because of those examples. When times get tough and things get difficult, people just innately move towards the people they feel they can trust.
Yeah.
And they want to protect all their friends and family to say, hey, you've got to go to Jeremy. You're thinking about anything real estate related, whatever, you got to talk to Jeremy. That's my guy. Like, I trust him.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing for me where people were like, hey, my brother, my cousin, my sister, my whatever it is, I told them they've got to only talk to you.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and those are the best calls I ever get. I'm sure you feel the same way. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, my friend told me you were the guy to talk to about this.
Yep.
This is what I'm thinking. Do you have time?
Yeah.
Yes. A, I always have time. B, it's never not a big enough deal. I had that conversation this morning. Someone had referred me in. Because I know it's just not a big enough. Are you okay that it's not like a big? I'm like, yeah. Everybody's like, at whatever point you are, that's the biggest thing you're ever buying.
That's right.
But I always want the call and the opportunity to answer your questions. I mean, that's, and I feel like you're kind of the same way.
Thing.
Like,
Same
no
thing.
matter what,
Yeah.
call me and ask me. I may tell you no,
Yes.
that it's not a good time or you shouldn't do it.
Yep.
I may tell you, yes, let's see what's out there, but I always want the question to be asked, and I want it to come to me, not somebody else.
Absolutely. And that's really the way that I carry those conversations with clients. It's doesn't matter whether you're buying your first home, second home. You know, I've got clients that have bought multi homes, and like portfolio of homes, and we still have those conversations. And I tell people all the time, whether you're buying, you know, an $80,000 home or a $8 million home, like,
It's the
I'm
same
still
thing.
going to treat you the same exact way, you know, because like you said, that $80,000 home might be that first stepping stone, and that for them is like this big deal. And I'm not going to treat them any different from the person that's buying an $8 million home.
No, we all put our pants on the same way.
That's
like,
it.
no, I still haven't met a person that can jump in them with both feet. Michael Jordan in his prime still one-legged it in. I mean, it's
right.
Tiger, same thing. You know,
Yep.
so I learned that working with athletes. Like, we'd have patients come in and they're like, well, I'm not one of your professional athletes. So?
Right.
Everybody deserves the same care. You get the advantage that I do work with that population.
And you bring that over to what they're getting.
So you're just getting that version of it at a level you're able to tolerate. And people were like, so I'm an athlete? No, you are.
Yeah.
You are. You know, maybe walking's your sport. Maybe
Good point.
getting up out of the chair is your sport. But that's we want you to be the best version of you. Those people, you know, there's only a 0.1% of them.
Yeah.
But you all deserve the same thing. And the same thing in real estate and the same thing in lending, I think, is everybody deserves white glove service no matter what it is.
Absolutely.
You know, because one, you don't know what that person's going to come back like in 10 years. But two, and I think you hit the nail on the head, I was able to sleep in 2008 knowing I did the right thing.
Yes.
I want to be able to sleep in 2024 knowing that all my clients get the best version of me.
That's right. That's right. And it's funny because, like, we always, you know, in New York, we have a saying, like, you know, you want to be able to walk down the block and not have to hide. And
don't you hide in New York no matter what?
I mean,
like,
you know,
really, like we talk about this,
right? Everyone just kind of just stays straight and keeps walking, right? But so you know, it's got to be really bad if someone's staying straight and they noticed you and you got to go run and hide. But I want to actually just dive into a little bit about, you know, Space Coast, Melbourne, Vieira, because I mean we've talked about this, right? There's a ton of people, not just in the Northeast, but just all across the country that are starting to maybe hear about the Space Coast, right? And I personally still really feel like I'm new here, but I really feel like it's just such an untapped gem. And I kind of want to keep it that way, but I know it's not going to be that way.
I can tell you the locals are mad. They are. I've been here 23 years.
Yeah.
So I've seen it change a ton. So now I'm almost half my life here.
Wow.
Which is crazy to think. But you're right. It is. It's been sleepy. I ran a stat 2 or 3 years ago, and for waterfront homes, we were a third the price per square foot of anywhere else in the state, and sometimes more. But that was the least. Yeah. Different. So you know,
and I can't even understand why. I mean, it's so beautiful. I mean,
but you know, Miami's flashy.
Yeah.
West Palm's always had a Northeast reputation.
Yes.
Tampa's a big epicenter. They've got professional sports. Orlando's Orlando. You know,
correct.
The mouse.
Correct. Yep.
So, I feel like us and maybe like Jacksonville even. Have been a little quieter, but Jacksonville's picked up, you know, immensely. Like that's one of the largest sprawls in the U.S., I believe. Yeah. If not the largest sprawl now. But what I've seen, you see people from the Northeast moving down. What I've seen, and my in-laws are these people as well. They lived in Fort Lauderdale for years and years and years and years, and they got tired of the traffic and they got tired of the congestion. Yeah. And they moved their family and their business up to Melbourne.
Yes.
My wife's uncle was in Fort Lauderdale and had been floating between there and New Jersey for years. And they had a beautiful home on the water in Fort Lauderdale and had it for 20 plus years. Sold it because he was tired of dealing with Fort Lauderdale. Now he only inched up to like West Palm.
But still,
that's a big jump.
Yep.
And you see Vero kind of drifting north.
It's funny. I see it just in conversation with people in general, which is actually nice, by the way. You kind of you get a chance to have conversations with people out here. You know, again, I love my New York people, but like everyone's just getting in the train or getting to work and that's it, right? But you can have conversations and just so many people. I'm like, oh, where are you guys from? Oh, you know, we just came up from Miami. We just came up from Fort Lauderdale. We just came up from somewhere else. And I'm like, wow, like I didn't realize just how many people are just moving away and moving up north and coming here. Yeah. And they're like, oh, or they lived here, moved somewhere down south, and then they're like, oh no, I couldn't wait to get back to Melbourne.
Well, and I saw that in the Midwest, so I feel like this town's got a little bit of that feel where you grow up here and it was so small and so sleepy, you wanted to get out for a while.
Yeah.
And you did, and maybe you went to work in Orlando or somewhere else, but when you were ready to have your family, you came back.
Yeah.
And I'd still contend, even with as much as it's grown, like raising a family here is pretty awesome for the reasons you said. Like you have a conversation at a grocery store. You actually talk to your neighbors.
Yes.
You know, everybody still looks out for everybody else. I mean, my daughter has friends in the neighborhood, and just letting her being able to play very easily and not worrying about like what's going on in that house once we drop her off is huge. Yeah. I mean, in this day and age, to have that security and knowing those families well.
And I could tell you so when I grew up in New York, you know, I was used to that. I was used to playing in the street. You had other kids in the neighborhood, and, you know, we'd be out there playing. All the adults would get out. They'd hang out, talk, you know, whatever it was. And, I mean, sometimes we would be out till 8, 9, 10 o'clock at night.
Right.
And there was no concern. Or friends would come by, hey, we're all going to go play football or do something like this. And, you know, it was no thought about it, right? That's not the case now.
No.
And you don't see that, you know, in New York predominantly, you don't see that. So and now I have a daughter and she's here, and I mean, I got to tell you, it's the most amazing thing. We go for walks, and it's like she's got her own fan club.
Oh yeah,
I mean, she's got her own friends now.
It's crazy, right?
And everyone stops. They say hi to her. We're walking on the beach yesterday. Someone comes by and says, "Oh, can I show her a tiger teeth? A shark tooth,
yeah,
right?" And I'm like, "Really?" And I'd never even seen one of those up close. And she's looking there, and they're interacting for a few minutes, and I'm like, "This is it's amazing for her because I've missed that, and I didn't even think that was actually out there anymore."
Well, you had it.
To be able to see it now here, it really makes me appreciate the area.
No, I agree. It's. I hope it stays that way. I think it will. I think what I've seen of people moving in and people that have been here, everybody's still greeted with open arms.
Yes. At least I feel that way. And I'm fairly new, right? And I feel that.
Is it 100%? No, nothing's ever 100%. But I feel very comfortable here, and it's made it easy to stay here because that's the way I grew up.
Yeah.
And when I found it here, I moved here by myself, and I got in with a group of people, and it was wild. Like families that barely knew me would go, "Hey, do you have anywhere you're going for Christmas dinner this year?" I'm like, "No,
Wow.
my parents aren't in town. They're gonna come down a couple days." Well, why don't you just come to our house?
That's awesome.
But that's the way people are here.
Yeah.
And to have your child grow up in that, like, that's what they're gonna know moving into adulthood too. So that's how they're gonna be.
Right.
But you're right. Like, my daughter has way more friends than I do.
But it's a great feeling.
Oh,
though,
no,
right?
it is.
Like,
It's awesome.
You love to see that. And
I
then
hate it
they
too.
had that opportunity, right?
I hate it too. And last night's an example. I was talking to my wife on the way over here, and she goes, "You think we're gonna see our kid tonight?" And I go, "I don't know.
Probably not."
We got home from gymnastics. Her friends are playing just across the street in the playground. She goes, "Can I go play?" Yeah. An hour later, she comes back.
Yep.
She throws some food in, like we're a restaurant, and she goes, "Oh, one of my friends wants to talk to me on FaceTime."
Yeah.
They played in her room, like training their dogs. We have a Chihuahua. It's not smart, not a smart animal. But they did that for an hour and a half, and the fact she, I miss interacting with her, but the fact she has friends, like real friends that they look out for each other and they talk and they're friendly, and I know their parents, and
right,
it's really like, okay, I know she's going to a safe environment and she's having a good time.
Right. And that's what you just said. Like, their mindset is the same thing, right? Like, they're so happy that their kids have friends, and so everyone has that same mindset, which gives you that sense of security, right?
Yeah.
Which is
We're
awesome.
all mutually headed towards the same goal for our children, right? And our families, and I want my wife to have a really good group of friends that and then she does, and to have all of that in the community, I don't want to sell it too much because I don't want it to get to like New York status here with like 1 million people. But
time's up.
But honestly, we love going to the city for a few days, but it's a lot.
Yes.
So to have a place like this you can come back to, is really nice.
And I think there's also a lot of other factors of things of why this is such an amazing place. The type of jobs that are coming down here, right? The affordability aspect of it. I can firmly say it. It doesn't mean I don't love these cities. It just means that I believe that they're oversaturated, like places like Orlando and Tampa and Miami and all these other places. And so even people that are relocating down here that go to those areas, they're not really getting to see the beauty of when you come down to Florida. I feel like here you really get to see the beauty of it because there's such a beautiful work-life balance that's here.
Oh, it's crazy. And the fact remains, geographically, we're close to all those things. So if you want to shoot down to Miami and Fort Lauderdale, it's straight and flat here. Like, you could almost just set your car on autopilot, even if you don't have a Tesla, and just like let it go, and you're not gonna run into anything.
Right.
you know, we're not.
I mean, listen, the time that it takes you to get from here to Miami is kind of like the same thing of sitting in traffic from Manhattan to Long Island. All
See,
right,
I don't.
So it's
know
the same
that.
thing, like 2.5, 3 hours it takes you. Like, you know what I'm talking about.
But like Orlando, you know, if we want to go to the parks for a day, it's 45 minutes.
I agree.
Door to door.
And I tell people that all the time. I am going to share this story, and I know I'm taking up time here, but I'm going to share this story. So I had to fly out to New York, and I drove up from Satellite Beach, right, Melbourne, out to MCO.
Mm-hmm.
It took me 52 minutes, okay? I landed in JFK. It took me from JFK to get to Baldwin, where we have a house there, right? But mind you, it's about 40-something miles from here to MCO, right?
Yeah,
Roughly. It's about 10 miles or less to get from JFK to Baldwin. It took me 57 minutes to go from JFK to Baldwin when it took me 40-something miles to go from here to MCO. Just imagine that.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And that did it for me, by the way. I said to myself, I'm like, it's got to be better than this.
No, it's mind-numbing how fast. Well, and full disclosure, Florida, we drive fast.
I love it.
Everywhere. I mean, I swear, my wife grew up here. I think she would have won a NASCAR race if she was a professional driver at this point.
She's the one that's doing 100 down there, huh?
We're not going to talk about it.
Right.
I might get.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Sorry. Edit that, please. But listen, Jeremy, I appreciate you coming in today.
Thanks for having me.
I hope that everyone that gets an opportunity to look at these clips and look at these this video on YouTube really just gets to see what I get to deal with. You're not just dealing with a real estate agent that at the end of the day is just looking at you transactionally, right? It's not someone that's looking at you of, hey, I'm just going to find you a house, get you in, get you out, go to the next client. It's a guy that, you know, and you were even talking about this about a client of yours yesterday that's a friend. That's no longer a client. That's a friend. That's the kind of person that you want representing you. That's the kind of person that I would want to work with, that at the end of the day is going to listen to you, not just because of the medical background, but someone that actually cares, that's going to listen to your needs, that's going to be okay with looking at things that sometimes, you know, are different, but having conversations, giving you the insights, the knowledge, the background, and not just trying to push you into something because it's just going to benefit him. And I think that's what people that may be looking to move down here, whether you're a first-time home buyer or looking to move up, you know, from South Florida or wherever, whether you're a first-time home buyer, buying a vacation home, or an investor, I think, you know, you definitely need to reach out to Jeremy.
And thanks for saying all that. I do. Man, I sound way better than I think I really am. So I'm going to have to step up my game a little bit. But no, I appreciate it. And the more I've gotten to know you, like, I feel like that's how you operate too, which is why I wanted to come on and talk and stuff, because I don't do a lot of this unless they're people I truly believe in. So same for you. Like, listen to you talk. You didn't talk about deals. Mm-hmm. You talked about people. Yeah. That's all you talked about. Yeah. It was there wasn't one talk of money.
Right.
There wasn't one talk of how many.
Yep.
It was always the people first. And I that's unusual in our industries. Absolutely. To have that. So that's what I respected about it, truthfully.
I appreciate it. I mean,
all the rest of it works itself out, but the fact you were people first is huge in my book. Huge in my book.
That's always, I mean, I think just innately it's in my DNA. You know, and I've never looked at the numbers. I've never said, oh, I have a quota to hit this or do that. Or it's just, I just want every call that comes in. It's like the first call that I got.
Right.
I guess because I've always remembered myself in that position, right? Like, I mean, I was fortunate enough. I bought my first house when I was 24, my wife and I, and I just remember the excitement.
You were married at 24?
I was married at 21.
Get the heck out of here.
Yeah, we just celebrated our 20th anniversary.
Shh, I got some work to do.
But I'll tell you something. I just remember the excitement, but the anxiety. Now, mind you, I was in the mortgage industry at that time, right? But I'm still a first-time home buyer, right? Yeah, I still remembered all of the anxiety. I still remembered wondering, like, how am I going to pay this? Can I pay this? What if I don't? Like, and so I know when I get a first-time home buyer phone call, I'm kind of just taken right back to that time.
Yeah.
And I tell them that, and they laugh, and they're like, "Yeah, you're so right. Like that's exactly how I feel." And for me, that's what makes it all worthwhile.
100%.
Helping people out.
Oh yeah, 100%. That's the job.
Yeah. Well, listen,
Awesome.
Jeremy, thanks again, and looking forward to doing more of these.
Yeah.
I think we probably could do like 2 hours.
Easily.
Even though we need to put that 45-minute time limit on it. But again, thank you very much.
Yeah.
I definitely enjoyed it.
Great time, man.
All right. Awesome.